Hello guys, Omni here. It's finally time to pick back up with Black Lightning for episode 12 in our post-crisis continuation of keeping up with all of these shows for the CW DC universe. So, if you haven't seen the episode, there will be spoilers because we're just going to be talking about what happened in the episode, my thoughts on it overall, and we'll go from there. The one thing this episode starts off with that I think was really interesting was this this video diary of Jace, Dr. Jace, kind of talking about how she needs to manipulate Lynn and try to pretend to be her friend. She's even got this little checklist of like things on how to make a friend, how to be a friend and stuff. And it's just like she's so dissociated from like these personal interactions, empathy, any of those things that really kind of ground you. And then it instantly cuts to them in the lab, and Lynn is beating the unholy shit out of her because he's like, she's the reason Lynn got kidnapped in the first place, their involvement with the Markovia and all this kind of stuff. We meet Colonel Mosen, who is in charge of all this stuff in Markovia, and he even reveals to Lynn all of the little miniature things that Odell had been doing to psychologically condition her to become addicted to green light. And, in spite of that, too, they even lay some green light out for her because they need her mind working in peak condition, which is what the drug tends to do for her. But she's going through withdrawal really hard. And, even despite all of that, even despite where we saw her last time with Jefferson, how hungry she was for the green light, in spite of them, Jace and this colonel, she decides to actually fight against it for a little while, and she does hold out. Eventually, unfortunately, she caves because when they are trying to decipher these genetic markers and the stuff all here, all the sciencey gobbledygook they need for the stabilization cure, she's trying to figure out a way with Dr. Jace to cure her withdrawal symptoms so that she can go forward with it, and she's just not working well enough to be able to keep up with it. Jace keeps pointing out some things that she's come together that are wrong, and in the end, she takes the green light. Another storyline that's heading up throughout this episode is we pick back up with the gang and Khalil, and TC's used his powers to kind of communicate with the chip, as we saw in the last episode, revealing that the real Khalil is in there somewhere still. We find out that the chip itself is kind of created its own little operating system in Khalil's brain. If they shut down the chip or for whatever reason at all, or if they take the painkiller protocols out of it, it'll kill them. So the only thing they can decide to do is they try to put the painkiller part of the operating system behind a firewall to maybe hopefully allow the normal part of Khalil to come back out and resurface past all of these pre-programmed instances that I kind of melded into his mind, his DNA, these protocols that they've inflicted him with. Painkiller is also inside of his mind too, kind of as an antivirus in a way. When TC goes in, kind of sees him as a threat to the system and attacks him, very Tron-like. But they use Jen and her electricity to kind of jolt the system and force it back. It doesn't make sense, but they make it work. But they're not able to get Khalil out of his little safe space because of everything going on with the Khalil. The painkiller aspect of the brain chip, the real Khalil has receded into his mind and created like a little safe space in his old apartment and all of that to kind of protect himself from all the horrors and what's going on, what's actually happening with his body. So TC can't get him to come out. So they think that maybe if Jen converts herself into pure energy, she can go into the chip and into the circuitry, and then TC can guide her to Khalil in a safe space, and she can guide him out. She manages to talk to Khalil. She manages to get him to leave his bed, leave his room, and then thus, in turn, leaves his apartment. And when she gets out in the apartment, down at the end of the hallway is the firewall in which they've locked up Painkiller, and that's when their eyes meet. Khalil is faced with all the things that Painkiller has done while he was recessed in the back of his mind, and Painkiller was taking charge on all these things, the murder of his mother, the fighting against the Pierces, and all this other horrible things that he's done. And he comes face to face with it, and then it becomes like a battle of wills for him to get through it. And Jen kind of call him out to the light, trying to get him to come with them, not go and feed into Painkiller. And because if they get him out of the safe space and he doesn't take control of his body back, both sides of Khalil will just die. If there's nothing controlling the host, the brain will just die. Um, they also have this like you die in real life, you die in the game, you die in real life thing. So if she can't, if that happens while Jen is inside him, she'll die too. It's just it's silly that it's whatever. It's comic book stuff. I'm not going to harp on it too much. But they eventually convince Khalil to escape with them, and he gets control of his body back. He wakes up, and he still has all of the knowledge that was pre-programmed into the chip, like all the tactical stuff, the knowledge of his poison and the poison dosages, his combat training, all of that stuff is still in there, along with all of Khalil's normal memories. And he has this moment with Jen where he's just like sells it to her. It's like, I might be back. He's like, you should have let me die. It was like, if, we can't be together. Not like this, not with me being like this. I've got this monster caged in me at all times. My hands are poison. There's nothing I can do. We can't be together. And he just leaves. That's actually the scene in which the episode ends. Another thing going on this episode is Jefferson meets up with Anissa and tells her about Lynn's situation, that she's been kidnapped, that she's been addicted to green light. And it starts this whole thing until they receive this text from Lynn's phone, and it turns out to be from Sergeant Grail, who kind of feels responsible for what happened to Lynn, for what they did to break Tobias out, filling him in on Tobias as well. That doesn't leave them feeling too great, but they decide to work together. He sets up a meet with Major Gray, with the ASA, so that they can try to formulate a team together. Because there's no way that Jefferson and Anissa are going to be able to get to Markovia and get Lynn back without their help at this point. So they have to work together. Jefferson when they make the meet with Major Gray, their partnership is based on the condition that whoever Jefferson brings with him, the ASA must not target them at all, must erase all of their data from their systems completely, wipe the slate clean, not target them, not use them, not anything. They are no longer within the ASA's grasp if they help them do this. On the other side of things, the ASA, Major Gray, has been working with that other scientist who has not been so keen on fixing the stabilization problem, but they have that one meta that Lynn had been working on, experimenting on, the one with the force field who absorbs and stores kinetic energy. They've got her set up and on this mission, but with one of the chips, and it has a preloaded program on there. If they are not able to get Lynn out, that her orders are to terminate Lynn so that so neither side can have her knowledge. So that's a testy little situation. So Jefferson's team, as they meet and consist of, is his entire family. Just Jen, Anissa, Gamby, and even Grace comes into play, having a little sparring match with Anissa earlier in the episode to prove that she can hold her own and she's not going to let her go. This is her fight as well. And Jen brings Brandon into it. So we got a full-on crew going to retrieve Lynn and Markovia. So we don't get to see where that all ends. I'm curious to see where that all pans out. I'm really curious to see what happens with Khalil going from here, because he's just kind of out on the loose. Is he going to have like these moments where Painkiller breaks through the firewall a little bit? And I have these moments of lapse in his sanity. How's that going to play out? How's that going to go? Where's that storyline going to go from here? I like that TC's getting a lot to do in this. Another thing that I forgot to touch on is like earlier when they were talking about, because now since Markovia has Dr. Lynn and Dr. Lynn Stewart and Dr. Jace and now Tobias, they have pretty much everything they need to eventually just create the stabilization that they need for their metas. Right now, the best they can do is they can get their meta to push their powers about 50% before they'll just die. Whereas Lynn's formula is able to get to 100% stable without any risk of death. So that is very, very pivotal to their whole plans. But, Tobias is in there. He's talking smack to their scientists and all this stuff. And they're like, you find out later that Colonel Mosen's plan is to lobotomize him so that they just have this vegetable that they just keep alive, and they just keep harvesting the DNA they need from his, the enzymes, whatever it is they need from his bone marrow. And he would just be a living plant harvest thing for them to use to just get what they need. I was just like, that shut him down so hard. This was a fun little episode. I really liked it. There's a lot of variety in the powers going across the board, especially with TC and Jin kind of combining their powers to get into Khalil. I just don't know where this is all going to go, where this is going to head from here. How is this going to frame the ASA going forward with them working together? They're still playing dirty. They're still not well. We didn't see any of Odell in this episode. Just Major Gray and Sergeant Grail. But yeah, I don't know. It leaves a lot of things open. It leaves a lot of possibilities on the table, as well as introduces quite a few more. So what did you guys think of this episode? What do you think of this storyline so far? Share your thoughts down in the comments below. We can have that conversation after the video. And guys, to replace Arrow, we're probably going to be doing a reaction highlights reel for the first episode of The Flash after Crisis on Infinite Earths later tonight to see what all's changed. I expect some big changes across the board for that. I've already read some things that we can expect for the rest of the season, but I'm not going to spoil that for you guys unless you already know. We can talk about in the comments. But tune in for that. Keep an eye out for that when we're going to be continuing our analysis of this world post-crisis for the CW shows going forward with Black Lightning, Batwoman, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, and so forth and beyond, whatever they might add to the list from that point forward. So thank you guys for tuning in. And if you like this video, support the channel by liking, commenting, subscribing, and I'll catch you guys next week and in the next video. Take care, everybody.